Welcome everyone. This is the MasterClass. My name is Patricknazareth. I have around 30 years of experience in teaching and I would like to help dispel your doubts should you have any. Today we look at the lesson Poets and Pancakes written by the author Asokamitran. Asokamitran, born in 1931, died in 2017, was from Tamil Nadu. He was born Jagdish Tyagarajan. He is one of the most important figures in modern-day Tamil literature, known for his realistic portrayals of middle-class life and his work in film journalism. He worked in Gemini Studios in the 1950s. It provided much of the material for Poets and Pancakes and other writings about the film industry. His experiences there gave him unique insights into both the glamour and the mundane aspects of filmmaking. His writing style is noted for its simplicity, the humor, and keen observation of human nature. He was peculiarly skilled at capturing the absurdities and contradictions of modern Indian life. He has received several literary awards, including the Sahitya Academy Award. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to work in a film studio? The author used to work there and he starts off by explaining to us what pancake is. Pancake was a makeup material that used to be in use many years ago. This was at the time of actresses like Vijayantimala, Greta Garbo, which basically was in the 1940s, the 1950s, the 1960s. Later on actresses, like he gives the example Ratni Agnihotri, probably never used it in their life. Anyone who acted in movies had to first put pancake on. Basically, it used to cover the entire face. Where was the makeup department of Gemini Studios located? It was said to be above the stables of Robert Clive, who at one time was the Governor General of India. Looked at it from one angle, the makeup room looked like a hair-cutting salon. Lights on every side, lots of mirrors, and these lights were particularly bright and particularly warm. It was very difficult for anyone who was doing the makeup as well as those who were getting the makeup done. It was a microcosm of Indian society. First, it was headed by a Bengali who left. Then a Maharashtrian came in. An Andhraite was there. There was an Indian Christian from Madras, even an Anglo-Burmese. And of course, since Gemini Studios is in Madras, the local Tamils. The author tries to show us, even before the times when AIR, All India Radio, used to broadcast on national integration, Gemini Studios already had a wide range of people from all over India. What was the job of the people in the makeup department? Turning anyone into such a person that they would look good under the lights, since most of the film at that time was shot indoors. There was a strict hierarchy in the makeup department. The chief makeup man made the chief actors and actresses, his senior assistant, the supporting actor and actresses, and so on. The people who made up the crowd was given the office boy. Imagine, even the makeup department had an office boy. Whenever there was a crowd shooting, this guy was hard at work, applying it with a brush. Of course, he wasn't really a boy, he was in his early 40s. He was a failed actor or a writer, maybe a director. Authors' offices had French windows. French windows are large windows, almost like doors, that open on to a balcony or maybe the garden and let in a lot of light. Most people could see him doing nothing except sit at his desk all day and tear up newspapers. So since they thought he was doing nothing, they used to drop in at odd times to tell him about different things that used to happen. So this makeup boy used to voice his frustration at not being able to make it big in cinema. And he had a target for his frustration, Kotha Mangalam Subbu. In all respects, he was the de facto number 2 in Gemini Studios. He himself was a person who had come to be an actor and who had failed. But he possessed a very important quality. He was from a high caste, a Brahmin. The boss, Mr. Vasan, took to him and he became invaluable behind the scenes. He gave inputs on everything. For example, if there was a director who wanted to know how to frame a particular shot or how to tell a particular story, Mr. Subbu was there to advise him. In fact, the author says, Gemini Studios at that time would probably have been nothing without Mr. Subbu to help. He was a man who had no malice towards anyone. He used to help anybody and everybody. You could go to his house, you could get a free meal, you could stay there, and he never used to count the cost. But even then, this boy had a grudge against Mr. Subbu, whom he blamed for his failed career. Mr. Subbu was a man of many talents, and he was a very gifted writer. But instead of writing literary fiction, which would be read by less people, he concentrated on writing commercial fiction, which could be read by the masses. He excelled in recreating period dramas, like for example, he brought to life the Devadasis of the early 20th century. Subbu was always seen with the boss, but when the time came for attendance, he was put in the story department. The story department consisted of Subbu, a lawyer, and of course an assembly of writers and poets. Nobody knew what the lawyer did, but it was whispered that more than being a legal advisor, he was more of a illegal advisor. She was a talented actress from the country and she had come to the studio. While shooting, for whatever reason, she lost her temper and started abusing the director and people on the set. The lawyer just put the recording equipment on, and when she paused for breath, he played it back to her. When she heard her own voice being played back and realized what she had said, she lost all her confidence, and even though she was a talented actress, she never made it big in cinema. This legal advisor also had a different way of dressing. He was the only person who wore a shirt and pant, and sometimes even a coat. Others dressed like Gandhiites in kurtas, in dhotis, and of course wearing khadi. Unfortunately for the lawyer, one day the boss closed down this department and the lawyer lost his job because the poets were told to go home. The author mentions several famous poets like Yogiyar, Sangu Subramaniam, Krishna Shastri and Harindranath Chattopadhyay. Why they used to be around? Because Gemini Studios had an excellent mess and supplied good coffee all the time. Congress ruled the state at that time and there was prohibition imposed. Meeting over coffee was the way to go. All of them looked at their ease, which seemed to be the reason why they wrote good poetry. Most of them worshipped Gandhi and wore khadi, but beyond that, they were not interested in politics. The term communism, they did not like. The term communist was almost like an abuse to them. This was the time of the moral rearmament army of Frank Buchanan, who came to Madras. And when they came, they were hosted by Gemini Studios. They presented two plays, Jotham Valley and The Forgotten Factor. Several shows were held, and not just the citizens of the city, the Gemini family of over 600 people saw these plays again and again. They were plain plays, simple plays, which delivered simple messages. But the sets and the costumes were of the best quality. They so influenced the Tamil drama community that for many years, there was always a scene of sunrise and sunset in the tradition that these people had pioneered. Later on, the author came to know that the MRA was a counter movement to communism, which of course nobody liked, accusing them of all manner of illegal doings, even killing their own parents and children. A few months later, the staff at the Gemini studio got to hear that they would be hosting an English poet. Who was this man? They had no idea about him. All they knew was that this event was being organized by the Hindu. And since the Hindu was a respected paper, it was assumed that not just was he a poet, he must be an editor of one of the major British newspapers as well. At the time, their boss, Mr. Watson, was also the editor of a respected Tamil newspaper. So, in the afternoon at around 4, a tall Englishman called Stephen Spender arrives. He delivered a lecture after the boss introduced him. It was obvious from the introduction that even the boss did not know much about him. But he delivered his lecture to an audience consisting of people from the studio. He himself must have been surprised to find out that he was addressing such an audience. And he was addressing them on the troubles that an English poet had to go through. The author come across an article in the Hindu itself advertising a story writing competition for a newspaper called The Encounter. He went to look for copies of The Encounter in the British Library. He read that the editor of this particular paper was the poet Stephen Spender. He was very happy to hear that, and of course he sent off his submission. He felt maybe, just like in a movie, long lost brothers come together, similarly maybe he would win the competition. Years later, he was walking on the sidewalk. He came upon a copy of the book, The God That Failed. In this particular book, there were 6 people who had written essays. What were the essays about? These 6 gentlemen had written how they had all turned to communism in the hope that it would be a good alternative for the world, and how when they found out the truth, they lost that hope. That was the time the author truly understood why Stephen Spender had been bought by his boss to Gemini Studios. Like we have already discussed, his boss and most of the people over there opposed communism in all its forms. The characters in the story then, the author, who is also the narrator, he worked at Gemini Studios in a small office, a curious and observant man. The office boy in the makeup department, he came to the studios hoping to make it big, but ended up doing makeup for crowd scenes. He's frustrated and bitter and blames Subbu for his failures. Kothamangalam Subbu, a Brahmin, number 2 person at Gemini Studios, was a multi-talented man, actor, poet, writer, creative assistant, a loyal, generous and a charitable person. The boss, Mr. Vasan, the owner of Gemini Studios, also edited the Tamil weekly Ananda Viketan. Stephen Spender, the famous English poet who visited the studios, a disillusioned communist. The settings: the Gemini Studios in Madras, basically the makeup department in Gemini Studios, which is a hot room with bright lights and mirrors and looks like a hair salon. Where was the makeup room? Upstairs in a building, supposedly Lord Robert Clive's stables. The author's cubicle in the studio, a small office with French windows on two sides. The British Council Library, where the author later on found copies of the encounter. What are the literary devices in use here? Humor and irony. The author uses gentle humor to describe the chaoticness of the film studio. There is irony, how he calls the legal advisor the opposite, in other words, an illegal advisor. The absurdity of the British poet's visit to a Tamil film studio, where nobody even knew what he was doing. Characterization. There's the vivid descriptions of people going through their actions and quirks, like the makeup slapped onto people on the crowd scene. There is the office boy's frustration and dreams, Subbu's versatility and his loyalty. Flashback. The story moves between different time periods. We know about Stephen Spender because of what happened to the author much later. Metaphor and imagery. Fiery misery, description of the hot makeup room. Dark chamber of my mind lit up. In other words, he finally understood who Stephen Spender was. There is contrast between the dreams and reality, the office boy's ambitions and his actual job, between the sophisticated English poet and the simple Tamil film workers. What are the themes that run through this lesson then? Dreams versus reality. The office boy's unfulfilled dreams of stardom. How many people came to the studio with big hopes but ended up in small roles, not achieving their goals. Social hierarchy and class. Even the makeup department had strict rankings. Subbu's advantage came from his Brahmin birth, but all these different social classes worked together. Cultural differences. The confusion when Stephen Spender came. There are language barriers, English and Tamil, and different worldviews. English poetry in a Tamil film studio setting. We have loyalty and relationships. Subbu is completely and totally loyal to the boss. There is the office boy's resentment and blame, and how personal relationships affect work. The power of chance and discovery. How the author accidentally discovered Spender's identity. How the role of coincidence in understanding the past. It was just a coincidence that he got to know who Stephen Spender was. That's the lesson there for you then. I do hope I have been of help. If I have, do remember to like, subscribe and share. Remember, there would be others who would be requiring our help. Thank you so much for watching.